Hi there, Ron here of Variable Play, and welcome to LarongAtin. With me,
Hi, I'm Nico.
Nico. and
Yeah, and I'm Freddy.
good evening, everyone. So, pardon for the change of plans. We were supposed to have a guest, but I think he was not available at the moment. So, we will try to get a reschedule with him next time. So he's actually my developer, the developer that helped me develop Folded Wishes. So John Brigger. So hopefully we can find a good schedule with him in the near future. So before we start our topic, uh, I want to ask the same question I normally ask during our open game night. Have you guys been playing any games recently? What have you guys
Uh,
been trying out?
the
Or yeah.
2 weeks ago, I and I. Okay, so 2 weeks ago, I and I finally got to open my. I backed the West. What do you call it? The trilogy of Shem Phillips of Garfield games, the West
West
Kingdom.
Kingdom.
West Kingdom trilogy. Yeah, so we were finally got to open the Kickstarter of Architects of the West Kingdom. We
Ah,
played that. So it's the first time I've played on an actual board in a long, long time. Because of the
nice.
pandemic, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then in Unpub, so we've been trying to have some Unpub game nights. We had 2 nights wherein we played Oceans by
Mm.
North Star Games. So yeah,
This is
that's it.
the
Not much for me.
uh, sequel to Evolution, right?
Evolution, yes. I have not played Evolution, but yeah, Oceans is great. Both games are great. Aya beat me quite strongly in Architects. She said
Ah,
she's been playing every night in Tabletop Game PPH. So she said she has had a lot of practice. And yeah,
Architects is fun. The
yeah,
whole just the bombardment of I have so many meeples there,
Yeah,
and it becomes crazy.
it's my new
I
favorite worker placement actually.
Oh,
Architects. I had a
Architects.
I had a slight existential crisis after playing Architects.
why?
Yeah. At first, I thought, I was thinking, why do I feel so? I mean, I enjoyed the game. I found it was great, but something was really nagging at me. Um, and I mean, I don't win games that often, so it couldn't be because I lost. So I was really thinking about, I was really bothered about it. And then
Mhm.
I realized that um, if, for example, someone had brought this game, Architects, to an unpub, and I had play tested it, I might have would have given the wrong feedback. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I think I would have given the wrong feedback to like if someone brought a game like it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I usually analyze games by like the flow of it, like how the game is continuously pushing to an end, right? It has its ups and downs, but the game's flow is always going to the climax where it's either an engine is being built up, people are getting abilities, so it's
Mm-hmm.
not just a push and pull wherein things get reset and then you're back to the start of the game. It's always moving forward, and I kind of felt like Architects had a bit of that, reset because of how when you get your meeples back, when you start to do your turns again, you only get one resource instead of getting like the multiple resources. So it kind of felt like there was a grind to it, and yun. So I had to really rethink the game in terms of like my understanding of game design and just
Mm-hmm.
the concepts, the theories, and had to analyze it again. And I think I just have to play it again a few more times. The My first impression I felt would have been wrong. So that's why I kind of felt bad. Like, what if I had played a game like this during an unpub and I gave the wrong like feedback, and someone made the wrong decision, went
Mm-hmm.
did something wrong with their game when actually it was already good, and I just had too shallow an understanding of it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I have to play it again. I don't know.
Yeah, I actually never felt like the
Mhm,
pullback mechanic was a reset.
mhm,
I understand na humihina ka with when you pull back because you
mhm.
want more people per location, but
Yeah,
uh, ang mas naramdaman ko when playing that was the push your luck element
yeah, yeah.
of the pushing more people at to one
Yeah.
location, and then
Mhm,
meron pa rin kasing konting build up even when you reset your meeples
mhm,
dahil you're still collecting uh, the cards.
mhm,
So meron pa rin konting uh, so hindi masyadong naging big deal sa akin yung reset, I
mhm,
guess, is what I'm saying. Kasi
mhm,
ako immediately I really liked it almost immediately the first time I played it. So I'm medyo hindi ko gets yung ano mo, but it might be because from you're coming from you're looking at it from how you would look at it from a design perspective
Yeah.
rather than you
I
ako talagang I'm just
mhm,
enjoying the
mhm.
game. So baka yun eh.
Yeah, I think more than that, it was because of playing Raiders. I think I was coming at it
Okay.
from the Raiders' perspective, and Raiders for me feels so much more faster and like, I don't know, this is just my opinion because like there's so much more that carries over to the next rounds. Your crew, your
Mhm.
resources, the people that you had. So I guess I think I just came in with the wrong
Expecting more of that.
expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was more of
Yeah.
that. Like,
But I
if
think,
it was not introduced as a Garfield game, I probably would not have felt the same.
Mhm.
So yeah, but
but his
again,
design, Viscounts, and the
the
well, my
Paladins.
favorite in that series is also Raiders. You guys would probably have noticed already when you have played my Epidemic prototype,
Mm-hmm.
because that is the inspiration of the mechanic where you place a
Mm-hmm.
worker, you pull back a worker.
Yes.
I thought
Sorry,
that it was a
you're including the West because it's it's
North.
your favorite among the six games,
yes,
including the okay, okay.
yeah. So I like that one. I think I like um, artifacts also, but yes, I prefer Raiders because of the simplicity.
Mm-hmm.
It's just really simple, and you're maybe the only thing that irks me with that is it's a race game. I'm not too keen
Yeah.
about race games.
Mhm.
Although I ended up designing one.
Mhm. But and
So
Raiders I think is such a good example of designing expansions because the two expansions of Raiders really changes it up for me.
I have not
Suddenly,
tried the expansions
oh,
actually.
you should because
Uh,
yeah, because once you've raided the locations where you raid, because right in the base game, um, once you've raided, that's it. That part of the board is empty
yes.
and you don't care about it anymore. But in the expansions, it changes into something else. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
so
That
that's
is
where it's
interesting.
cool. Yeah,
I will
yeah,
seek
yeah.
that out then. Cool, cool, cool.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Sir Freddy?
Yeah.
Any recent games you have tried out?
I actually
Painting?
haven't been playing, just painting my Blood Rage recently. Malapit nang
Yes.
matapos.
Oh.
I only have one clan left, and I'm working on them now. So by the
Nice.
end of this week, the board game would be fully painted.
Mhm.
So that's
I've also
my.
been painting. This is
Mhm.
the one I posted in TikTok. It's
Mm-mm.
my
Ooh, mice and mystics? No.
yeah. The aftermath. So it is
Oh.
from Mice and
That
Mystics,
universe.
but
Oh.
yeah, this is the aftermath um, game.
Ang
So
nilalaro ko lang
sort of
talaga ngayon, I guess, MTG Arena. That's it.
Mm.
Doing the daily quests.
yes, I'm excited about the. Is it the Innistrad pre-release?
Midnight Hunt. Yeah.
The Midnight Hunt. That is when on
The schedule for the pre-release for Southeast
the
Asia
intention
is
is
pushed back a week.
okay.
By the way, para alam nyo na, logistics issues, buong Southeast Asia delayed ng so the
Okay.
pre-release products will be available the same week as release.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Okay. Well, it is the situation of the world.
Yeah,
Um, yeah.
yeah.
So designing games and uh, getting games logistically, it's always a big challenge now. So I think one of
It was a
the,
challenge
the
before. It's more of a challenge now.
Mhm.
yes, it was already a challenge in the first place,
Oh.
but it has been magnified a lot, a
Mm-hmm.
lot. And so the as a game designer, and we kind of were inspired with the topic because people were asking for budget meal games and uh, basically affordable games. And it kind of related to us a lot, Nico, because you have experienced, whenever you were demoing your games, that people are like asking for, oh, this seems to be very pricey. Uh, how can I get this cheaper? And they're already looking at it in a perspective of, I have the game already published. But as a designer, way before that even starts, there's a lot of costs already involved in coming up with a design. It's from the pens and paper and all of these things. So I guess today we would be talking about like ways to sort of reduce the cost. Um, tama. We're budgetarians. Tama. Denmark. So this is basically just our tips on like how to sort of cut costs. And again, Sir Freddy here is coming in with the perspective of, hey, if I showed you that, is that okay? Is that passable enough? Um, so there. Um, how about you start, Nico? Because you just right before you started the show, you actually were talking about a game idea, and
Mhm. Oh yeah.
this is not even in prototype form. This was,
No, no.
here's an idea, and
Uh-huh.
can I run it by you guys? And I think this is
Mhm.
like a good way to sort of flesh out some of the ideas and run it by people. So
Mhm. Mhm.
um
Yeah.
how do you
Um.
go about that part? How do you sort of,
Mhm.
what is the elements required to at least have something that pwede mong ikwento, something that you can explain to someone that people would understand and they would be interested with that idea. Or at least they would have a visual of how it works.
Mm-hmm. So actually, this is what I would call the design phase of the game, wherein you're really just exploring and thinking of ideas, trying to find something that is worth developing. And most
Mhm.
game ideas are killed at this stage. Because sometimes you have this great concept and you think it's gonna be the best thing ever, but once you actually take your pen to paper and you like flesh it out, parang it's not gonna really work out. So what I was showing, yeah, this isn't actually
You don't
part
have
of the
to
topic.
make cuento of all of it because it's
Yeah, yeah,
still a
yeah, yeah.
very
No,
rough one.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you can at least
So
show like
mhm.
what it looks like when
Yeah,
when your idea is being fleshed out.
yeah. Um, so I have a lot of scratch paper from high school and college, and I just have this box. And I think one of my game design goals is just to empty that box of all the paper.
Wow.
So yeah, so I have this clipboard. I'm already at high school. I think I've done most of my college scratch paper. So, anyways, so I have this clipboard, and I just have lots of random pieces of paper, and yeah, the first thing I do is just take my pen and I just write down all my thoughts. Whatever I'm thinking, I try to write it down just to make it concrete, make it something that if I forget, then I'll remember it later on. And then
Hmm.
just from there, I start to think of um, how does it usually start? Sometimes I'll have a working title like, oh, a worker placement with a swung game. Then just that. Um, the
Yes.
goal is not really to come up with something good. It's just to come up with something, anything. And then
Hmm.
I'll write just write a few words, a summary of what I think it would be, how I imagine it. So, oh, aswang eating people. So, right, aswang eating people. And then sometimes I'd write down just describing the experience in as vague
Hmm.
as just the feelings that are coming to my head. So, oh, I think it's gonna be funny. So I write funny. It's gonna be big. So, oh, there's Mikey. So, yeah, I'm gonna just write down all my thoughts because the purpose of this is just to flesh out the idea in my own head. Because right now it's just it can be anything. It's a white sheet.
Right.
And then, as I do that, I let my mind wander into just pegs, things that I'd want to incorporate in it later on. So like, oh, okay, so aswang. So, um, there's definitely gonna be an aswang hunter or something like that, or it's
Hmm.
gonna be what are possible resources? Blood, salt, um,
Okay.
people, things like that, and then yeah, just putting all the words out there, and
Hmm.
I let it simmer a bit. At this stage, I'm not ready to make a prototype because I have no idea yet what it's going to be about. But that's
But
my goal.
when do you say parang
Uh,
it's a good time already to
to
um maybe at least run the bounce off the idea with someone, like you also
ah
mentioned like you had the idea and you ran it by your wife, you ran it by Aya,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
And so when was that stage where it shifted from here I fleshed out an idea to
yeah.
I think I have something here? when
Mm-hmm.
when do you when do you sort of qualify you have something already to
So
cuento
the
to?
first part is, yeah, the first part is it's just like a cloud of ideas, a cloud of words. Um, at that point, I don't want to share it because I couldn't even if I wanted to. Like I'll just be blurting out random stuff and I'll just confuse I or confuse you guys. So the moment I share it is when I can actually imagine me playing it a bit. Like what am I actually doing, even in its most basic sense? And is that something like interesting? Because if I'm just gonna describe a worker placement game in general, then what's the point, right? It has to be
Mhm.
like worker placement, but this. and
Yes.
I can
Dapat meron ka
explain it
na,
to you. Yeah.
you
Mm.
need to have that hook. I think
Yeah.
when you can figure out a
Mm-hmm.
nice hook, something
Mm-hmm.
to make people interested in. I think
Yeah.
that's when you have that feeling of, huh, I'm not sure if that's already been done. And if
Mm-hmm.
when you have that feeling and now you want to run it by people, like have you seen a game that works like this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then
But
that's when I think you can have like I
mhm.
think I can talk about this.
Yeah, and it's also because what exactly are you going to ask people, right?
Right.
The question of what do you think about this is really vague,
Mm.
and is actually like trouble for the person being asked. Like, what do you think about this? I don't know. It's such a vague question.
What do you
So
think about deck building?
yeah, yes. So at least like a while ago, right, when I shared my idea to you guys, my question was, what do you think about this game? Has it been done before? So that's
Right.
more concrete.
Mhm.
That's something you can
Yes.
answer off the bat. So it's I also don't want to burden you guys with questions that are too open ended.
Yeah.
um so I think that's where it's kind of you can share it, like you
Hmm.
know the question and you know the answer that you want. It's not just a what do you think in open ended. It's kind of a little closed ended already. So
Yeah.
there.
I
Yeah.
I have this idea I've been brewing in my head, and I've drawn it a couple of times. I kid
Mm.
you not. Every time I sort of start to flesh it out, I always
Mhm.
reach to a point that's not playable.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But the idea was it was like like how Shang-Chi and
Mhm.
you have these sort of um poles, or basically you have a circle around you of your character, and you can put these tokens around you to sort of form a symbol, and that's how you can cast an action. Then
Mhm.
sort of like a way to trigger basic actions. So you're just pushing your
Mhm.
token this way, that's a punch this way, and so forth. So okay, and then I can do combo chains based on the shape that I have formed. There's an effect plus an extra bonus that it will move another token. So cool. I have some general idea how it would work. Whenever I try to flesh it out, I always just so what happens next now that that's there and
Mhm.
I can't draw it out in a graph, and my math goes like, how do I do all of the combinations and the cards? Ah, wag na lang.
Mhm.
Ayoko na. And
Yeah.
so when I have that idea, it's always been there, but yeah, it sometimes it's just like that where I would get Sir Freddy's like, Ron, what are you talking about? When it's confused, that to give people a perspective of when you shouldn't be talking about the game yet, it's because it's not yet that
Mhm.
fleshed out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just pulled it out because it's one of those games that I knew it wasn't ready, but it's always been bugging me, and I
Mhm.
knew that if I would say it, it will elicit that that same reaction, like, what are you talking about at
Mm.
the moment? So there.
Yeah. If you can't if you can't imagine the answer you're going to get, then maybe it's not yet right to ask the question, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True, true, true. But
Mm.
Sir Freddy, have you experienced you know, especially in your international travels back in when the world was still not as chaotic?
Traveling.
Okay,
Do
travelable.
you just get random people in Gen Con like, "Oh, do you have a game idea for you?" and they try to elevator pitch within 30 seconds a game
Well,
concept?
when I'm there, I'm mainly a distributor, so I'm not a known publisher, so I don't get pitched. But from what I've heard, yun sa mga publishers doon, most of them get pitched like so many things, and I think a
Hmm.
lot of the pitches they hear are like super weird. And I think the worst thing that are those people who are like, oh, I have this idea, but I can't tell you so much about it.
Yes.
So
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
man.
yun yung
Yeah.
worst. So you're not even sure if the ideas already fleshed out because
Uh-huh.
Right.
they're so paranoid about
Uh-huh.
you stealing their idea. Yun yung mga stories na naririnig ko talaga na pinaka weird eh.
Yeah.
Na parang,
Yeah.
well, never mind. And I've experienced that here in the Philippines
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
with somebody coming up to me. I have an idea. But hindi man lang nga nag-request ng NDA.
Mm.
Gusto niya na agad ng publishing deal. But I have no idea what his game was. Talagang you have to, I'm looking for a publisher but I won't show you until we have a and it's not even an NDA. Yung NDA pa lang I would find it totally ridiculous. Pero itong
Mhm.
guy na to talagang there's something, parang never mind. Hindi na kami tumuloy. I didn't even
Yeah.
really see his game. Except that I saw some pieces that nung nakita ko, parang he designed some pieces out of pins. Parang sabi ko,
Mm.
yung palang parang, wow, that's like super dangerous to play with. Parang, pag nagkamali ka ng dampot, masasaktan
Mm.
ka.
Mm.
So, okay. So,
Okay.
yeah,
So
things like
that, I
that.
think,
So,
tip number one, I think, generally from us is that write down your idea, see if you can flesh it out at least on a
mhm,
concept stage, and if you
Mhm.
find something interesting that's you haven't seen before, and again, there's a caveat with this: you need to have played quite a bit of games for you to go, aha,
yeah.
Mhm.
roll to move is not
It,
new.
ito pala yung yung advice ko for designers. If you're at that stage pa lang, unless you already have a close working relationship with the publisher, don't pitch
Mm.
anything at that stage. Because if you pitch something that sounds really crazy, the chances of you na mapapublish even at, when you actually have a good idea will be close to nil na. Dahil you'll have like this label na, oh, crazy guy. Di ba? So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
so unless you have a very close working relationship with that publisher, don't pitch something that's half baked.
Mm.
Pitch it with
Right.
like with people you're close with or your friends, your play group. Dun muna. If they can't get what you're talking about, don't pitch it to a publisher yet. Dahil talagang you're gonna get labeled. You can't
Yes.
help it. Parang you're gonna be marked na, oh, it's that guy again who like with this cuckoo idea, 'di ba?
Mm.
And it's gonna become harder.
Mm.
So yun.
It's not gonna be 504 in one game. It's gonna be 505 in one. Yes. Yes. Agree. 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 So yeah. So let's look at the comments. I think a lot of people have joined in. So good evening,
Okay.
Clint.
Mm.
I know
All
Solo
right.
Board Gamers of the Philippines is running a print and play contest.
Mhm.
So they're running they're trying to design solo games. I have already played Clint's Dice Drop.
Mm.
It is really cool. It's basically Tetris. The dice is dropping, and you basically roll the dice, and that's where they're dropping, and you're manipulating their values so that they sort of rotate into the correct position, and you're hoping to form the shapes that you need to cross out. It's a solo game, so you're crossing out, but
Mhm.
I have already messaged Clint for some ideas. So there are some interesting ideas there. And I think it shows when you have played quite a bit of games that you will find that, hey, I haven't really seen like Tetris used as dice. So that's actually interesting. And it really, I've seen Tetris type using
Mm.
Tetraminos, and then they're moving down, and there's also the drop it, which is not really, it's a more of a dexterity thing. So that was interesting. So they're running a print and play contest, and what else? Yun. So the NDA daw sabi ni Mikey, haha. Yan. And so Clint said we need an episode on tips on how to pitch your game. Number one tip already was shared by Sir Freddy. If it's not ready yet, don't pitch anything crazy. I think I I've encountered this before, even for the content creation aspect. They um hey, Marks is also here. Hi, Marks.
Oh,
Mm.
Gawin ng series yun. Pitching,
ito na nga yun,
taking
Marks.
criticism, and giving and framing criticism as well.
Once a month. Once a
Pwede.
month.
Yes, we are doing this once a month. Pag may
Mhm.
time ka rin, bro, you can always join in because you are still a designer. You,
Yep.
you
Mm.
can't get away from it. You have a game that's in your name. That's forever you. So yun, so with content creation, I think I've heard from one of our guests before that it's also a lot of networking, a lot of like you have to be there, you have to know and sort of be friendly with the other content creators. I've also heard this with other game designers. And I think it's a big part of it that you have to be part of the community. You have to
Mhm.
know and help out and contribute. Uh, Not necessarily just on the game design aspect, but if you want to become part of it, you also have to understand the people around it. And I think it if you're just coming in from really outside and just coming in, you might not be seeing all the things you need to be
Mhm.
understanding on off the bat. So I think getting to know the people in the community and networking would be the first step before you even pitch a game.
Mhm.
Cool. So now in terms of, so we already have a design. Let's see, you had some interesting feedback. Hey, Nico, whatever
Mhm.
you told her earlier, I think um it's a good idea.
Mhm.
What are your next steps to sort of next steps in the sense of like just
Mhm.
a cheap way of getting
Yeah.
your idea into something playable? Is that already the direction you're gonna take next?
Yes, definitely. So my one of the things that I always think about when designing games is you wanna try it out as quick as you can, just to see if that your idea in your head matches the reality. Because sometimes you imagine things. Well, no, most games are imagined first, and you don't know if your imagination is going to make sense in the real world. You don't know how people are actually going to do their decisions when you start playing it. So what I often try to do is come up with the bare minimum specs in order to actually play the game. So
Mm-hmm.
let's say what's a good example, like um, let's say you had the concept for Lords of Waterdeep, right? um, let's say that, right, you have the concept of a worker placement like Lords of Waterdeep. You would It wouldn't be a good idea to start drafting the intrigue cards and the missions right
Right.
away, right? First thing you want to do, come up with the map, make some um what do you call what's the term, like a peg, or um, um the word is escaping me, but generic missions,
Yeah.
right? You
Yep.
just want to make some generic missions where the cubes, just the basic math, like, oh, this five of these cubes and five of these cubes give you 10 points, something like that. Just
Right.
so that you can test out the idea. You don't want to get into the details yet of what are the specific abilities and the specific intrigue cards and stuff like that. Just the most generic thing so that you can just try it out and see how it feels putting down the workers and getting cubes and doing those things. So I would actually come up with a list, and I'd try to list down what are the most essential parts just to
Mm,
test the most basic core mechanics, so that I also have a guide once I'm prototyping it. So I'll have
right.
the basic idea of it. I'll write down the list of like what are it needs: 10 cards, a board, these stuff, and then I just go through it like a checklist. Okay, I have my board, check. I have my cubes, check. I have my dice, check. And then once it's all there, I try it out. So there's still a like just there. It's already being planned out, just so that I know when I'm at that point wherein, okay, did I test it
You
or
are
not?
way more organized than me.
So yeah, that's
I
how
jump
I go
from
about it.
chaos to the full organization. I don't have a track.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so because
So yeah.
in the way I normally to flesh out my game, I would be using like a pack of cards, dice,
Mm-hmm.
cubes, and in like imagine already in play. And if it doesn't work there, I
Mm-hmm.
stop. That's where all of my iteration works first. And as soon as I say, okay, I think I have something, I jump straight to the other end. Okay, let me design all of the things ready. But again, the only reason why I'm doing that, and that it's gonna be part of my tip, is that know some learn to code in some way of automation,
Mm-hmm.
Excel, or there's a lot of card generation software. So look for those. We can share the links in the comments later. Um, and the uh, the the designs that normally it takes a while for you to come up with all of the components. There's a lot of software for those, so you can just fill in the blanks. So I normally try to get to that stage. But in your case, it's actually a good tip. I'm gonna be trying that already. Where if I'm envisioning a large game, uh, it would be good to sort of prioritize what components I need to flesh out, because it becomes a barrier. I think
Mm-hmm.
if there are too many components,
Yeah.
too many things you need to build, the only time you'll be able to finish that game is you have if you have complete free time. But in the way how the
Yeah.
world works nowadays, I we barely have that. So
I
cool.
actually think because you mentioned programming, right? Now I kind of am realizing it now because I also program. Um, I think that's the way I kind of do it is like how when you're programming a something a software, right? So, right, you'd want the individual parts of the program to kind of act like black boxes that interact with each other,
Right.
right? So that just so that you have the modularity. So if something goes wrong, you just have to fix that part, not the whole thing, right? So I think that's how I kind of design games too. Is that if there is a complicated part of the game, so let's just say I'm using Lords of Waterdeep again as the example, the intrigue cards or the missions, I treat it as a black box, and I just assume like, okay, some these are some of the things that are gonna come in and out of that, and
Mm-hmm.
I can design the details of that later on. But for now, okay, there's just some missions are there's gonna be an intrigue card or whatever
I
that
like
does
that.
this ability that's gonna come out of it. Yeah, so that I
Okay,
can just
I'm gonna come back.
design them in modularity. Uh-uh.
Sige, Nico. I'm gonna come
But
back to that. I really like that concept. Let me just pick up this comment from Aldrin.
oh, okay.
Hi, Sir Freddy. I still remember your advice back in June 2018, no? Tanda pa hindi, where you were one of our panel for a school board game design project. Back then, we presented on NG Centus. You have a great feedback on improving some of the mechanics of our game we presented. That's why, and what's best in for the target market. Yes. So agree. I think Sir Freddy would be very upfront. I was just, kanina lang, di ba? Kita nyo naman, nagkwento lang ako ng game idea ko and Sir Freddy's like, Ron, I think that's a fail. so, right. So, yun. Uh, Sir Freddy, with yung, normally when somebody is presenting you their idea, I think we already tackled this a little bit back in our
Mm.
first episode. Um, when somebody runs an idea by you and let's say their components are not that fleshed out, what's possible for you, what gets you at least okay, I can listen to this, and there's something interesting there.
Uh, Actually, I'm not easy to what do you call this, impress with flashy components.
Right.
So somebody come to me with like, oh, meron akong art. I have all the art. I have all this. But if I see that your mechanics are, hey, this is just like Magic the Gathering, exactly like Magic
Mm,
the Gathering, and you just slap something on it. Talagang, I'll tell you upfront, why are you making this?
yeah.
Diba? What games have you played before? I'll be very upfront. But if somebody comes to me, and then with really interesting mechanics, even if they have like proxies lang, like for
Mm.
example, yung ang storya namin before yung sa Bagani, when it was being
Mm.
designed, 'di ba? We only use magic land cards and then just drew circles and triangles and squares on it. Walang art, walang mention ng kung sinong hero yun or whatever. Hey, will this work? Ganun lang.
Yeah.
Tapos ginawa na ng mechanics ni Nico, tapos yeah, this will work. So it's
Mm.
really the mechanics that impresses me. If it's something na, hey, I think this will work and pasok siya dun sa gusto nating gawin, or it might even be may papakita sa akin mechanics, ito yung theme mo, tapos sabi sa'yo, hindi, palitan natin ng theme. Like yung kaninang
Yes.
team ni Nico. Parang, parang interesting yung mechanics, pero yung team niya parang hindi ko kayang ibenta. Di
Yung
ba?
Yes. Yes.
Pero yung theme actually, I think, is what probably inspired the mechanics. But, uh, and then we were talking that baka mahirap ibenta yan dito sa Pilipinas, masyado tayong conservative eh. Baka bumalik
Yes.
tayo din sa satanist na scare na naman ng, uy, parang may mga board gaming, talagang mga tingnan mo yung mga ginagawa nila, di ba? So it's really the mechanics. It's not so much the how fleshed out your universe is. Uh Yun yung the only time I would be impressed by fleshed out universe is pag nandun na tayo sa stage na paano natin to ibebenta.
Mhm.
Hindi siya nung the stage na is this going to be a working game or will this work, 'di ba? Ano yung example ko diyan? Meron dating game yung Hunger Games when the first time it came out.
Mm.
It was a game that was published in the US, and then I saw it. I play tested it. It's garbage, total garbage. The game was total garbage. Pero sabi ko, yeah, let's order this. Why? Because I know I can sell it.
Yeah.
Diba? Parang there's gonna be Hunger Games fans and they're gonna gobble up anything that has the logo of Hunger Games. But the game was really bad, and this got published. Surprisingly.
Mm.
So, may mga ganun, but you know those things are just one shot and then they're not gonna get republished. And
Yes.
uh, if a new player plays something like that, they're not gonna play board games ever again.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the sad reality. I think
Diba?
that's why, coming back to Nico's point, it's good to sort of create sandboxes or at least
Mhm.
zones for your game, right? That you can, especially if your game is fairly big. I often see this with new designers. They have so many bits and
Yeah.
pieces. There are so many layers in their game. The problem is each sort of zone or section of the game, it's not entirely working that well yet.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
problem is now is you can't fix it because you don't know if this is a problem because of a previous part or the next
Yeah.
part. And if you can zoom in a little bit, and for example, let's say I remember for my Impact Financial, the full game of Impact Financial had a quest system. It actually had sort of missions. It's not called quest, but it's missions.
Iron.
You buy and sell stock market, and then you're investing on companies that will help fund charities and stuff. So that was sort of like the full game. The missions part, it wasn't working as intended. People were kind of disconnected with it. They don't feel it. They're looking at it, but they don't enjoy that part.
Mm.
What was the solution? I was able to remove that whole system, and the game still existed without any problem. And that's why it's called Impact Financial Junior. It's really that whole section of the game was just Let me see if what happens if I just remove it. Hey,
Mhm.
guess what? It still works. So I
Mhm.
think it's a good sign if you can zoom in, make certain systems work first, and then
Mhm.
I now that I know why the core frameworks work, adding back new layers, the ways to. This is where we would be consulting with John Brigger once we get a chance with him
Mhm.
next time. Is now now that you have a super streamlined
Mhm.
system, like how do you now add wrinkles again? How do you now add variety and how do you add layers and depths now? Because when once you have a very streamlined framework, you want to again expand it a little bit to make it breathe. And now that I've seen what it takes to get a game published, also in an international scene, I have a better idea now. If I want to come back to the Impact Financial game, I have a better idea of how to add layers to it, but
Mhm.
that's mainly because I'm confident first with the core, or at least the
Yes.
different parts I'm confident already.
Yeah. My theory actually with a lot of games that have expansions is that the full thing with all the expansions is the original design, and they would just like cut stuff out for the base game. That's my theory, at least with a lot of things. It's like I feel this they added this in the start and they just cut it out for just
Mhm.
well also to make the game more beginner friendly, and
Mhm.
because it's kind of like a concept of level design wherein you
Mhm.
introduce the core mechanics, and then
Right.
once they've mastered that, that's when you can add the other stuff, because if you introduce the whole game in its entirety, it's just going to be too overwhelming.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, expansions is the board game version of level design, in a way.
Yes. Yes.
And
I
may
I
ano rin
think.
yan eh. I think may kasama ring production.
Oh,
You don't
that's
want to spend too much on
parts.
the base set
Mhm.
pag hindi ka pa sure sa ano, 'di ba? So you want to limit the expenses then, and then pag sure ka na, then release the more parts of the game if you can
Mhm.
And you already have a
compartmentalize.
measure of your captured market. You would
Mhm.
already know how many you need to produce because you already have a good idea whether the base game sold well,
Yep.
Mhm.
and
Risk
that's why
risk
you have.
mitigation din yan, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's why you
and just
you
to make
have
it
games like
cheaper.
Munchkin that just keeps. I don't care. Just add more expansions to this game
So
because
yung mga
the
actually Hugot is like that exactly.
Mhm.
yes.
Yung first version was bawasan natin 'to, bawasan natin 'to. Tapos with the expansion, gamitin natin yung tinanggal natin.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes. Hugot pa more. Mars mentioned make things as simple as possible, but not simpler. Yes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
You wanna refine, I think, the core and in each part of your game. So it has to. So if you have, let's say, a rondel mechanic, if you have a worker placement mechanic, if you have some card play, each one you want to be able to see whether is this part really working as in a good way, or is it too
Mhm.
dependent to other parts of the framework, and if they are dependent on other parts of your mechanic, are those all fixed, or there's something quite nagging you like, it's
Wha-
not
wha-
fun. So that
One,
then you have to test it out, try removing it, see if it works without it. If it does, then at least you can now sort of polish the one that you've left, and then you can add the other one back in. That's kind of how I sort of fix my sort of create zones in my game
mhm.
design.
One advice I usually give, because I've experienced a lot of what you said, like the game has already a lot of its parts, but you're not sure exactly where the problems are because it's something with the core mechanics. But when there's so much stuff already added on top, you don't know which is the core mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to think of games as like brick walls. So you start with the foundation, and that's your core mechanics, and you only start to put in the second layer of bricks once the first layer is kind of stable. So that would be my focus first, is like the first layer, then you build on that. Because if you start on the top, then it can easily all just fall down, and you'd have to
Right.
start all over again. So one advice I give usually when I see games like that, because it's not when I see a game like that, I don't and I've seen it often, I don't blame the creator because it's fun making stuff, and usually the details are the most fun parts. Like, right, when you're like, imagine you're making MTG, you're making a TCG type game, you're going straight to making the rare cards. You're not thinking about the commons and like the core, like, phases of the game. You're thinking about, oh, this is the cool super strong whatever card. So it's perfectly understandable why a game designer would go for the exciting OP strong stuff first. So usually when I see a game like that, I'll tell the designer, um, first, just reflect a bit on your what.
Pro tip:
Yes,
don't
pro
try to
tip.
make a
That was just an
TCG.
example. Yeah. Si Mark's na mga flashback, he could hear the tanks and the bombs. Anyways, so
I mean, it's a game designer's dream.
yeah,
It's still in the back of my mind. I
yeah,
want to be able to maybe build a WoW TCG like game in the future.
yeah,
However, whenever you start to, it's kind of that game I mentioned a while ago that you guys
yeah.
were like, "What are you talking about, Ron?" It
Mm,
was intended in that manner, but yeah, no, it just
yeah,
it's a really difficult. I think you need to have enough traction first as a designer. If you have a lot of pedigree already in terms of your designs, you have a lot of games out. I think it's okay. I think it's okay to risk, say, because you've already banked quite a bit. We have a question here
Oh,
from Clint.
Clint, yeah.
Kailangan mo dapat isipin yung user experience.
yes.
Kailan mo dapat
Kailan? Okay.
isipin yung user experience, fiddliness, too much bookkeeping, difficulty of moving pieces around. So when do you think about that in the game design process?
Me.
Yes,
Um,
I will
I
also answer.
so that okay, that's a good question, and honestly, one of the most irritating things for me personally. Because okay, so um, if you're familiar with the work we've done, it's been mostly mass market, right? With
Mm-hmm.
Darna, Bagani, Elastic Man. So the threshold for fiddliness is so low. It's really really low, and my personal problem is that I have these alarm sirens in my brain when I'm designing. Like, oh, it's too fiddly, it's too fiddly. But actually, it may not be. It may actually be okay. It's just that I got so used to dealing with the mass market, where in just like, oh, reading text is so fiddly, so cumbersome, that I have to turn off that instinct for myself, because heavier gamers will not have a problem with certain things.
Right.
um so I think that it's one of those things that you will eventually encounter, but you will also gain an instinct for it. So my instincts are kind of off because of the mass market experience, but it's something like you're designing, and then you're gonna look at something and you're gonna think, it might be a little too fiddly, but you don't know. So what I suggest is just go ahead. Make a note that it might be fiddly. Like, you, because then again, it goes back to the concept of you don't know how it's gonna work out until you've actually played it and seen it on paper. So if you think it's going to be fiddly, just make a mental note or an actual note about it and deal with it later. Um, and the answer to the fiddliness might come to you when you're taking a shower. It's usually that kind of thing. Yeah.
I remember Thomas was presenting Combatron, and in his initial form, he had the hero in the middle, and you're just playing a card, discarding a card, and then taking back cards to your hand and so forth. And I was the one who told him, I think you need to look at like how the human moves, and it has to feel like that's what's happening. So if I'm playing something, I want to feel that I'm playing it in front of me. If it goes away, I need to be able to, because the game is so fast, I need to be able to visually see that it has moved away. So I asked him to, your discard needs to swing this way, and those can eventually go back up to your hand as you finish up your deck. And because of this he now ended up with a cycle. That's why tap of Magic is so ergonomic, because it's such a really good way to indicate a card was used. Exhaust that's flipped, it still annoys me to this day whenever I see a game that tells me
Mhm.
to flip a card to exhaust it, because I always go, well, if there's a few more of them flipped, is it the deck or is it that, it
Yeah.
adds this confusion that
Mhm.
I don't want to add layers in my, what I'm memorizing of what's going on in the game. So
Yeah.
tap is one of the most ergonomic ways, and fortunately they can't exactly copyright the mechanic, but they did copyright the term. It's the fastest way to say it. But
Mhm.
people are
Mhm.
now used to saying exhaust. So
Yeah.
my advice there is, I think when you're already in the prototype form and you've already seen it played, that's the time that you will be able to see
Yeah.
what feels fiddly, what
Mhm.
Yes.
feels off,
Yeah.
and just like how there are books um, on ergonomic design. You know how, in order for you to easily teach someone what they can do and what they can't do, they need to afford it. Meaning, so for example, if the door only opens by pushing it, don't give a handle that you can pull. So same thing with
Mm.
game design, that if you want people to ergonomically follow a certain pattern, you also want to do that with your design. You want to consider the physicality, especially because of board games is a very physical thing. That you want to have that physicality of, um, the way things move and how you read things and how you explain things. They all
Mhm.
have to feel natural, and you only can really see that once you already start holding the components.
Mhm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Tama na. It's towards the end na eh. When you're checking for the UI,
Mm.
user interface, user experience. That's
Yes.
when you already have the prototype, you have your core mechanics aligned out. And sometimes your publisher will tell you, pwede ba natin bawasan yung components?
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
If you have too many components, that will make the cost of producing and therefore the cost of the product higher. And kung price sensitive yung market ninyo, that's I think once you, so not just the user experience, you'll also have to consider it pagdating sa production stage.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So I think
And mhm.
pushing it further back. So you've done your basic prototype. Could be pen and paper, marked cards, sinulatan na magic cards. That's totally fine.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Absolute. As long as people can recognize it in your
Yes.
iconography, it's okay. The the design, or the graphic design is different from the user experience design. So the
Mhm.
UX is different from the art. So
Mhm.
art is, the
Yeah.
game art, how fonts are and so forth. But the UX is like, okay, I'm planning to use icons here. I'm planning to use shapes. I'm planning to use colors. Whatever are
Mhm.
your ways to make the game simple. Those are something that you can already apply during the prototyping stage, because you can
Yep.
already. I remember, Nico, you had a game where it's that supposed to be one of the series, um,
Mm.
that zooming thing.
The zooming thing.
The- the-
I A game I made with zooming.
it's basically the mechanic of the TV series. Whenever there's something important, they suddenly zoom to the face of the.
Ano
What game
yan?
was I making? Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
Probinsyano.
So you,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah, yeah.
Probinsyano.
Yeah.
so you made a game for Provinciano, and
Yeah.
we needed to be able to sort of like look at the card that came out, and so the UX was really good in the sense that we were able to really spot, and it was just drawn out like shapes. This is a police and whatnot, but it was done in such a way that even if it was just written down, we were able to recognize what was going on.
Man, like, where is that game? Yun nga there's so many games that are killed somewhere along the line that I don't even remember where. I don't even. I'm not even sure if I have notes of that game. Yeah, but that's somewhere.
Aw,
So,
we like that game.
yeah.
So
So maybe it can be
I have
redeemed to
been
something else.
well, you guys have seen me every Sunday where I would be working out, but
Yeah.
I would always hack my brain using some game mechanic. And I think actually one advice that I have for new designers is actually when you have a concept and you can sort of map it out to basic cards and components,
Mhm.
play it.
Yeah.
Play
Yeah.
it with yourself, make an opponent, and already
Yes.
do it. Um, it really helps out. I remember my Sunday episode, and I was explaining the rules. I kid you not. I made because I was tired the previous day, so I made the game right before the show,
Mhm.
and I was explaining it. I had a good idea of like what I wanted to play. I was explaining it, and in the middle of explaining it, my math went out and said, "Ron, you will be doing 100 push-ups if you keep with that rule." Like, okay, that was a
Yeah.
bad idea.
You
So
know
I
who's
had to
actually
quickly
ah,
change it
you
on
know
the
who's
fly. But
actually
yeah, go ahead,
ah,
Nico.
am I lagging? Oh, okay. You know who's actually good at that? Aya.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the first games we got was Agricola because it was a wedding present. So
Mm-hmm.
we have an Agricola, and Agricola has so many parts. So yun,
Right.
so there'd be so in Balangay when we would have so how we work in Balangay, because nga the design is phase is always risky, is if we have a design a goal. So like we have a client, they have this, whatever. We spend maybe a week or two. We all separate and we just do our own thing. And then at the end of the week, we pitch it to everyone. We play everyone's prototypes. So so like me, I know how to use Photoshop and whatever. So I'm gonna type it up, print it out. As usually he's going to actually draw it out with he has like um what do you call that, pen brushes, and he's gonna do the art of it and stuff like that. And then see Marx is going to write it down on index cards and stuff, and Aya, who doesn't know how to use Photoshop or stuff, is going to get the pieces of the Agricola and like going to mix components from she's gonna get a board from this game and she's going to get
Right.
Mhm.
pieces from this game and stuff. So, and that's one of the games we came out was ano, yung Iligtas ang Sitio Matatag. Yeah, it's she used parts from Catan and parts from Agricola.
Mhm.
So yon, although it would be really difficult for me later on because I'd have to like put them back, figure out okay, is this
Remember
thing
where they.
complete? And yeah, and sometimes like you'd open our Agricola and they're still organized into baggies for the game she made. So not into the Agricola pieces. So yeah, I mean, but it goes to show that you don't need, you can just really design on with anything you have. Use what
Yes.
Mhm.
skills you have. If you're an artist, then do the art yourself.
Yeah,
All
I
you can do is
remember
write.
Sai. So
So yeah.
Sai and I are coming out with a, well, have been in the process of the game. I know it's been in transit, Sir Freddy, right? For
Mhm.
long,
Uh,
long time. Ay, the world of logistics. But
yeah.
Sai and I were um, part of the upcoming LarongAtin releases, and a lot of his games were designed in 100% PowerPoint. And
Mhm.
you look at the game once it comes out, and then tell me if you can see PowerPoint on it, because I kid you not, the only difference is that when we were already about to go into the printing, I think we brought in some graphic artists to sort of just touch up and add a bit more uh, blurring on the gradients and fire effects, because they were done in really hardcore
Mhm.
PowerPoint. So Sai, for the longest time, has been designing purely on PowerPoint. So there is no excuse. I know there's an artist out there that uses Excel, like he changes the
Yeah,
color of
yeah.
the cell
The cells,
and
yeah.
then zooms out, right? So he makes paintings using Excel.
Mhm.
I know of people back in my high school that can do paint,
Mhm.
but again, you don't have to
Oh
do
yeah,
that.
yeah,
I think Mikey shared a lot of um, links, so you can do card maker.
yeah.
You can also do playing card IO, really cool card design
Oops.
tool. And of course, later on, we'll be tackling to close off the Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator. But go
Yeah.
ahead, Nico.
But
Go and show
um,
your
yeah,
prototyping trick.
yeah, but I really think if you want to start anywhere, just start with index cards. If you have Sharpies, that's great.
Mhm.
But this is a really good hack. These are called friction pens. So these are friction pens, and before friction pens, what I would do to prototype would be, well, first index cards. But
And
index
then
cards get
pencil.
hard to shuffle after a while. Although Marx found a hack wherein if you have a deck of index cards, you cover it in baby powder and it becomes easy to shuffle again. So
Wow.
yeah, but Marx has so many hacks. Things you I don't know where he
Okay,
think.
okay.
Hacks.
We're gonna
Anyways,
make a special episode for Marks. We're gonna bring him
Marx
in and just
hacks.
Mark's hacks. Okay, gotcha. We'll do that.
So
Marks,
yeah,
you already know.
yeah. So there's the baby powder. But anyways, but at some point you don't want to use index cards too much because they're just soft. So then I would do the magic card and sleeves. This is like a staple. You can't really be called a game designer until you've done that, which is like any card and then sleeve and then just put a slip of paper with the card thing on there, right?
Right.
The problem with that though is that it gets really cumbersome to do edits because then you would have to remove the piece of paper, chain write on it, and then you would have to return it, and that can take a lot of time. So the good other hack is to going back to index cards. You use these friction pens. What are friction pens? They're erasable ball pens. So let me just get a piece of paper here just to show. Okay. So like here, I'm gonna write down LarongAtin in blue, in my blue. And it comes in blue, there's black, there's red. So here, see, you can write LarongAtin, you can see it
Okay.
there. Yep. And then, so the cool thing about friction pens is that they rely on the technology of invisible ink. So it's you're not really erasing the ink. It's more of as you use this eraser, you're heating it up, so it disappears. So unlike like when I was in grade school, I had erasable pens, but you could never really erase them fully. But look at this, tada! It's gone. So
So
when
would
you're
that
doing
also still,
edits,
if you blow dry that, would it also disappear?
I don't know. I've never tried. You
Okay.
can try that out. But the
Okay. Cool.
cool
Cool. Cool.
thing is, so like here, if you're using these are like what do you call this? Pentel pens, but they're friction pens, so they're
Wow.
markers. Yeah, so with just these, you can do all your logos, you can do all your color coding. They come in. So
Mhm.
I don't know where my others are. They come in these like pentel pens, and they also come in highlighters. So you can even do that for your just easier color coding. But look, let me get another color. Let's try pink. Okay, so
Okay.
Yeah. So here you go. So see, there. It's in pink and it's really easy to see. Because the problem with
Right.
pencils is it gets hard to read, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yeah. But
You
here,
can't see it from afar. And then
yeah,
I've
you can't
also
see it from
tried
afar.
the the whiteboard. You know, the small whiteboards where
Yeah, yeah.
you can use an erasable marker. The problem
Hmm.
with that is that as soon as you shuffle, remove those around, they get erased. And
Yep.
I remember Thomas and I were prototyping, and at the middle of the table, we were going like, "What was that card again?
Hmm.
I don't know." And we had
So
to
yeah.
like, "It's okay, just draw something on it."
So yeah. So this is it kind of tore, but that's because this paper is scratched, so there's already
Okay,
writing on the other side. But there, I didn't erase it completely, but just to show how clean it
cool.
is. Look at that line right
Yeah,
here.
right.
So there, it's super clean. So I made this dumb bahala na si Batman game before, and I this is all I use these ones, and it's just super quick, super easy. So yeah, so that's my it's
You have a
oh
game,
this
Nico, that started out with your scribble and it became the full game. That it
uh,
never left the scribble.
have I ever done that?
Puti.
No,
Yes, it's
I
called
did.
puti.
Puti.
Oh yeah. You guys just call it scribbles, but that's just because I suck at drawing. That's a legit attempt at art. So yeah, so you guys suck. So
Yeah, but
um yeah.
yes, it
Oh
was
yeah, it's
scribble
oh
art.
here. Yeah, I have a prototype here. Um
So sige, while
uh
you pick up the prototype, so
yeah,
Mark said friction pens
yeah,
less than greater than
Oh,
pencils, because when you erase pencil marks, you run the risk of tearing and or
yeah.
making the index card so to do several
Here's my
times. Plus, you have
puti
the advantage of having
card
multiple
game.
colors. Yes, there you go. That is puti.
Yeah.
Really, really cool game.
yes.
You
See
guys should try
scribbles.
this out. See,
Yep. Yeah. That's
really
puti.
creepy scribbles.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, I should update because when I made this, I had no awareness of a solo game yet. But it's a cooperative game. I should make a solo version just for the solo game
Yes, dude.
because it's actually
Yes,
already a solo
absolutely.
game. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And then
actually that would work as a
what you
solo.
do for the solo game, I don't know, this is just a weird suggestion, is
Mm-hmm.
that you could make it like an instruction manual of how to make the game yourself using their own scribbles.
Mm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
it becomes like a free print and play, dude, that
Yeah,
they really have to make on their own
you can make your
because
own
it's gonna be
art.
unique on their own. Ah,
Yeah, that's
Yep.
that
cool.
seems
Okay.
very, very
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I
Okay.
still really like the mechanics of that game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Except that
Though
I couldn't ano
I
eh.
think that one
I
can
don't think
easily
yeah. I don't
uh
think I did it justice because I couldn't explain it properly.
Yeah. Enter ko kaya sa ano, solo game
yeah,
contest.
pwede.
Joke lang.
Yeah.
Kaso wait, judge yata tayo, di ba?
Ay
Hindi ka
talaga,
ba
I don't
kasama
know.
sa judges?
They didn't tell me.
Oh, okay.
They didn't say anything yet. But yeah.
Alright. I
So
think
yun.
kasama ka.
Yeah.
Alright. So,
Sponsor niyo na kami. Pilot pens. I've been touting your friction pens for like how many years na. So, yeah. Yeah, apparently this is kind of pricey, but it's worth it. It's 630 pesos when I bought it in
ooh,
National. Yeah.
okay.
But
Yeah,
yeah, it's
maybe
worth
there are China versions of it.
it. Budget meal versions.
So interesting because here's Nico with the friction pens and the opposite and Ron all with the code. That's true. So in my case naman, I jump straight to coding. So I would create once I've seen it work on a physical form. My next step is to design the UX. I don't so for example, like what Nico mentioned a while ago, where you would have the let's say quests, and these are five of these type of cubes give you this much points. What I would do is literally like a for loop of okay, there are five resource types, so I will then generate five times the five combination, and then the points, and those are the cards in total.
Mm.
And I just sort of make a template and fill in the blanks. I
Mhm.
don't even try to think of
Let
the
me just
should I
see.
have less of this or more of that. Nope, I just loop it, send it all there, and see if that works, because
Yeah.
it's much faster to.
Kaya ang bilis gumawa ng prototypes ni Ron, eh.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Medyo automated na yung paggawa niya, eh. Parang naka-ano na, eh, may template na, eh.
I invest on the template. The template takes me a few days to build, but once it's there, the iteration becomes faster for us.
Mm.
So when Thomas and I were working on a game together, we were constantly updating the formula,
Mhm.
because ang problema namin was the actual people who was about the game were leaving. They were
Oh,
leaving. Some were being added, and we're like, wait, what? Okay, so I gotta update it. And imagine if I didn't automate it, then so kasi you can even do this in Word, right? You can do the mail merge in Word, so you
yeah.
can reduce the size of the page to the card size, which is 65 by 88 millimeters
Mhm.
for the standard MTG. So if you can do that, there's also somewhere online where you can change millimeters to pixels. So if you need pixels, you can also use that. But PowerPoint already uses millimeters, so you can also do just the millimeters or convert it to inches. Use that as a template in PowerPoint. Fill in the blanks using mail merge, and you're done. Right. So you can do that. Of course, you can do that in Photoshop, as well.
Yeah, I use, so I've switched out of Adobe. I use Affinity. And
Affinity.
Affinity Publisher has also a mail merge. So yeah,
Right.
I what I would do is I would um in Google Sheets. So my specs are there in Google Sheets, and then
Mm-hmm.
I export it as a CSV, and I import that CSV into my design. So there. Here I actually have a prototype. This is another Trece game that is a little bit more ambitious than Paradox because it has story and stuff. So I have it in this box. This is Trece case files. So here, I
Okay.
didn't realize how much stuff I cannibalized. So my tikbalang is the unicorn from Vast. Um, this the dragon. I don't remember what this dragon is supposed to be in Vast. Um, and then the goblins are from Vast also, are the Chanaks, and this is the
There is a
crystal.
reason why I have all of these cubes just on a container. I don't know how to return them anymore, so I just said, okay, these games are in the bin. They're
Yes,
now just my cubes.
I have
Whichever, if
dice.
you guys can recognize the colors, then you can tell me which games they were from.
I have dice that I think Clint also bought some of these kinds. They're pretty. They have their
Yes,
shine.
yes.
And then I have these poker chips. So Marks would recognize these because we use them all the time before as health. So we have these chips. I think he was probably the one who put these stickers with threes on the other side. So these are just from National Bookstore. Uh, Chibi, Treset, standees that Aa drew
Cute.
before. Um, and then I have these. So I think maybe Sir Freddy would recognize these. Um, these are pieces from the Lord of the Rings Risk. So
Ooh.
these guys are my aswang, and this guy is my capre, I think. And then I have these tokens. So I don't know where I got these. I think just in Shopee. They're these little wooden
Right.
tokens. So I wrote on one side with a friction pen. Um,
Oh,
because
cool.
they're supposed to be like face down, like the clue tokens in Eldritch Horror.
Mhm, mhm.
So there. And then I have the card. So this is the what I was saying that you have magic in a sleeve, and then
Yep.
this. So this is already at the point wherein I would print out the cards because at some point it's easier to just print than to write. Like
Yeah.
once your text is kind of solid, but But if you can see, my UI is still just squares
Mhm.
and text. So it's still nothing interesting. Like you wouldn't buy a game with stuff like that.
Mhm.
Yes.
Um,
And
and then
this form of prototype is actually perfectly acceptable because what we're looking at
mhm,
initially is testing out the core framework. This is
mhm,
not yet the graphic design. It needs to
Mhm.
function. I think it
yeah,
has to be playable and needs to
Mhm.
function. Then you can demo.
yeah.
All
Mhm.
right.
And then this is
Uh,
Don't do
that's the last
don't do
component.
work that's not yet necessary because
Mhm.
it might become wasted work if the core mechanics don't pan out. Yun lang yun.
yes. Yeah.
So here's just the
Absolutely.
last part. This is a mix. So I have these ones in sleeves, but I also needed these other cards. So I pasted them on some POD cards that were reprints.
Yes.
So
Okay.
yeah, but and then so I made a template which I could write on with my friction pen. So
Ah,
that's why
nice.
it's much easier to edit them on the fly. And that's the prototype. The map is somewhere. I don't know where I put the map. This game should have a board, but I don't know where I put it. So
Cool.
there, that's it. Yeah,
Okay lang ang handwritten basta legible. And that is why I code because my handwriting is garbage.
that's my problem too.
Worse
Marx
than
has good
doctors.
handwriting. My handwriting's bad.
Alrighty. So, uh, thank you very much, Nico and Sir Freddy, for
Mhm.
a quick 1 hour, almost 1 hour and a half impromptu um, session. I knew we would always have a lot of things to talk about, and I don't think we still have covered enough. And again, super thank you for everyone that has joined us today, this evening. So, have fun, enjoy game design, enjoy the journey, baby steps, and keep on learning, keep on playing new games, and also stay safe. It is still very much a pandemic, and we have to hunker down and keep safe for everyone. Get vaccinated.
Mhm.
All right.
Yep.
Uh, so until next time, you'll see us again next month. This has been LarongAtin. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, everyone.
Okay,
Evening.
good night.
Good
Good
night.
night. Bye.